Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast with Sheena Israel and Alyssa Ma. Frequency Ma is a sanctuary for the oracular and the ordinary. We explore the interwoven paths of mothering, embodied business and prosperity, self-creation and relationship, spiritual technologies like channeling and frequency keeping. Expect earth and insights to catalyze your quantum leaps. For the multi-dimensional, multi-passionates, all of you is welcome here. Journey with us.
Welcome to the Frequency Ma podcast. I am Alyssa Ma, and I'm here today with a solo transmission in the midst of some pretty gnarly physical purging. So I'm not feeling very vibrant and expressive today, but nonetheless, I felt the call to come on and to share some distinctions and offer some nuance and to a field of pretty vitriolic and divisive sharing around some of the goings on with a certain, some might call him a spiritual teacher. I've related to him as an entrepreneur and business person. I'd never listened to his podcast prior to just recently this week, but I did tune in because there was just, so much in the collective that I felt drawn to, see for myself, right? See for myself, feel for myself. So whether you know what I'm talking about or not, I don't mean to be cryptic, but I'm also trying not to energize this topic too much with my own opinion. I'm just finding more and more that I just have fewer and fewer opinions about things in the sense of it being charged, but I do see everything as an opportunity for clarification and refinement. So thank you so much for being here today. And I just want to invite you into a spiral of reflection that, touches into something deep and timely. And, as this kind of pulses through the collective, we might be meeting ourselves with confusion, judgment, projection, and this kind of, hunger for certainty. And so, today we will explore the energetic architecture of deification and demonization, the shadow of spiritual moralizing, and this collapse of the guru archetype, and the sacred distinction that we all make in our own lived experience between judgment and non-resonance. So, this is really intended to be a broadcast, not of answers, but just an invitation into your own coherence, your own embodied nuance and sovereignty, constituting this sanctuary space as a balm for the agitation that we're seeing kind of ripple through the digital realms, where we can, mirror for, those of us who are, called to speak from the mystery and, not just from the mountaintop. So thank you for bearing with me as I'm moving through the waves of my own purification and speaking to you from a deep place of being in transition. So in this first segment, I want to speak about projection fields, specifically about deification and demonization. So I want to begin with a truth, an energetic truth that undergirds a lot of the noise that we see in the collective field, which is that deification and demonization are energetically identical in many ways. So both are casting an energetic cord toward an other, and both misplaced power. So both are creating a projection field that is not rooted in the essence of the person or object, but in the unresolved energetics of the projector. So whereas deification is the projection of our unclaimed divinity. Demonization, on the other hand, is the projection of our unintegrated shadow. So I want to say that again because I think it's important to understand this as truly two types or two sides of the same coin. But that, excuse me, that deification is the projection of our unclaimed divinity. And so, just letting that kind of sink in. I'm letting that sink in. And then that demonization is the projection of our unintegrated shadow. So either way, we are not relating to people as sovereign human beings and in all their complexity. We are relating to our own unprocessed internal material. So as alchemists, this can be a gift if we recognize it as such. But I think the problems crop up when we create these projection fields of either deification or demonization, and then we relate to the material as not internal to us because we don't understand it as and name it as a projection field. So we'll circle back in. But the object, like, Aubrey Marcus in this case, or AI, or whatever it is that you're judging, that you're deifying or demonizing, just becomes, sorry, my son's getting a call that's coming in onto my computer for some reason. That we're relating to the thing that as a symbol, not as a sovereign self. So I want to introduce another distinction, and I think I've mentioned this previously, but as a philosopher by training, distinctions and definitions are sort of the first manner of kind of trying to digest matter, right? And so we can always begin with definitions. And again, this is just as a place to gain a foothold into a matter of inquiry. So I want to look at judgment versus non-resonance. So one of the real core misunderstandings that creates conflict in conscious and spiritual spaces today is the collapse between judgment and discernment. So judgment holds a moral charge. It says, like, that's wrong and I'm right. And it seeks to affirm a fixed position through condemnation of the other. Whereas non-resonance simply says, that's not for me. And it holds space for neutrality. It leaves space, it honors sovereignty, whereas judgment creates fragmentation. Non-resonance allows for coherence across difference. So when we confuse the two, we begin moralizing other people's sacred timing or their spiritual choices. And this is where so much vitriol around public figures arises. When people project their own disowned, inner chaos onto the choices of others, as if alignment as a verb, not a noun, must look the same for everyone. So just keeping in view that we are on an evolutionary journey, and when our frame is evolutionary, when our comfort doesn't matter, right? We're seeking to evolve. So, experiencing an emotional charge or a discomfort in relation to someone else's choice is always a gift because it's allowing us to reflect differently on a different aspect of our own unprocessed internal matter. So, there's also, looking at the illusion of moral clarity that we see in these kind of sovereign communities, 5D, ascension, in the spiritual, what did I hear someone call it the other day, which I really liked? like in industrial spirituality. I like that. But this kind of like, the way that we're starting to feel the kind of like big box effect on the spirituality where, things are, have such a polish to them that feels, and a veneer that feels very artificial. So anyway, thank you again for bearing with me. I'm really in this fever dream right now, and it's quite interesting to be in it regardless, but also to be on camera while I'm navigating this, my own state of consciousness. But I'm trusting the flow, and I'm trusting that, what's coming through is useful and helpful. So, discomfort and polarity is not, or the what's another word? Duality is the word I'm looking for, isn't the enemy. Like, this is the material of growth. It's, the desire to collapse that tension into certainty is, in a sense, a trauma response, that masquerades as clarity. So when we're in that space of wanting to resolve the binary, we need to move. Again, if our interest is in evolution, and there's no moralizing, and when I'm using should language, but if our interest is in evolving our own soul expression, is to hold that paradox without panicking. Can we honor both ends of a spectrum without needing a side? Can we acknowledge that someone else's expansion may look like our contraction, and that both can be true? I mean, this is truly like an energetic maturity that, and spiritual adulthood that is necessary to inhabit if we want to evolve as individuals and as a collective. And there's also as part of this, collective evolution, there's this necessary death of the guru. And I mean this metaphorically. The guru archetype is collapsing, and it's not because we no longer need guidance, but because we're remembering that true teachers don't hold power, they hold mirrors. And the death of the guru is the death of spiritual outsourcing. Okay, so it's the death of blind loyalty. It's the death of placing someone else's clarity above our own. So in traditional lineages, the guru was a remover of darkness, a pointer, and not a pedestal. But distortion has carved the guru into a proxy for the divine, and this is really borrowed from the traditions that we think that we're escaping, the religious trauma that we're processing. We're seeing recreated in New Age spiritual communities. Gurus, pedestaled as a proxy for the divine, for alignment, for whatever you want to call it. And projection really thrives in that setting. So this death of the guru archetype, which is always an alchemy, right? It's always death when held in the evolutionary frame, is always the fertile ground of rebirth. So I'm not meaning to issue that with any type of finality. That's part of the spiral of evolution. So, this death is a rite of sovereignty. It's the unraveling of hierarchy in favor of a template of resonance. And it's really an invitation to step into our own authority without needing to disown the wisdom of others. So where do we go from here? There's a lot of integration needed. So, now what? We're in the age of this kind of, distributed divinity, right? The wisdom isn't centralized. There's no, temple space that we can go to receive these, divine transmissions from an externalized source. So, it's radiating from, the nodes of, Gaia's intelligence, which we are, so from each of us. And so when someone triggers us, when we are finding ourselves in a space of emotional charge, we can ask, is this judgment or non-resonance? And, which do I want to choose? Am I seeing the person, per se, or am I interacting with my projection? Is this my truth, or is this my fear? So we're really here to hold paradox and not to collapse it. I think that's something I really want to vibrate, is that, the architecture of the higher dimensional awareness that allows us to hold these more complex and yet deeply simple states of awareness anchor in when we are able to hold more perspectives at once. Very simply said, how many perspectives can we hold at once without collapsing? And so it's not contradiction for contradiction's sake, but it is cultivating the ability to hold ourselves among the prismatic, crystalline coherence of the many, in unity of the one. So, here we are, truly here to remember what freedom looks like. Um, so maybe just remember that, sovereignty is sacred and resonance is enough. Not every path needs to be ours to still be divine. We're all transmuting our karma in different ways, and there's just a lot of wasted energy in the ways that we meet our own emotional triggers, the way that we cast projections, and not every path needs to mirror ours in that way. So every time we, cast a projection outward, we're being asked to bring something home into our hearts. So thank you for being here. May your path be clear, your heart be true, and your discernment be as soft as it is strong. We'll see you next time.